Welcome back to PodX. My name is Ayush Majithia. Our guest for today is someone whom I feel is like a powerhouse of creativity, ambition, and execution. Anya Jain is the co-founder of Run Frenzy, which is like a modern age production company that's kind of changing up the content space. She's worked with Coffee with Karan, Navya Nanda, and so many other projects. So, Anya, I'm really excited to have you on this podcast. And I'm going to dive in right from the start of your journey when you were an assistant director to building the creative agency and now going forward.
Of course. I'm excited.
Yeah. So, Anya, I want to start off with so you started your journey very early. So, it's somewhere where I read that you were an assistant director in Bhool Bhulaiya at the age of 18. So, where did that come from? How did that help you going ahead? So, how did that begin?
So essentially, I had actually gone to Anis sir's office, Anis Bazmi, who's the director of Bhool Bhulaiya. I was in his office to meet someone that I knew through a friend. And I was just waiting for this person that I was going to meet. And Anis sir's office was open, and we happened to just look at each other. So I was just shooting my shot and I walked into his office and I was like, so I'm a really big fan and I know that you're working on Bhool Bhulaiya too and I just love to be a part of it. And at that time he was very sweet, but he unfortunately didn't have any roles for me. However, they were scouting for locations in Jaipur and in Kolkata, and I have family ties in Jaipur and Kolkata. So I just happened to mention to him that if they ever need any help looking for anything, I'd be happy to provide any sort of help required. And so we happened to exchange numbers at that time. And 1 month down the line, I randomly get a call from an unknown number and I pick up and it was him. And he was just like, we're shooting in Jaipur and we'd love to have some extra hands on set. So if you're around, please come. And I wasn't actually in Jaipur at that time. And the next day, they had a very early morning schedule somewhere in the outskirts of Rajasthan. And I was in Bombay at the time. And I flew to Jaipur that night because I was just super excited. And that's how it started off.
But how did you manage to balance college and the shoots and all that stuff? Because I think you were in college at that time when
I
you were
was,
doing
yeah. Yeah, I actually gave one of my final exams while I was on set. So,
oh
um, yeah. But I actually my college was very accommodating because I was at Atlas Skill Tech, which was at that time known as ISME, and we had Dr. Indu Shani as the dean, and
correct.
I had a very close relationship with her. So I used to tell her that I know that I want to be in the entertainment industry, but I didn't know how. So when I got this opportunity, I had that chat with her and with the other faculty, and I was like, I will have to not be present for a while, but they were very supportive of it. So I did have a period where I wasn't attending as much, but I was able to catch up because I've always been inclined towards like learning fast and studying. Like, honestly, I know I sound like a nerd, but I love studying. So that wasn't an issue for me. And also during that time, COVID started in the middle. So a lot of
Correct.
our classes happened to be carried out online. So honestly, that helped a lot.
Oh, that's very interesting. So yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to come to the other part. So Run Frenzy. Firstly, I want to know why did you come up with that name and how was it born? I read in one of your interviews, you did mention that it happened on a flight when you were traveling back from Delhi to Bombay, I think. So it was like a very
Yeah.
spontaneous decision, but if you could tell us that story, that would be very interesting.
Yeah, so I actually always knew that I wanted to start something of my own. And my co founder and I, Meghna, we were getting a lot of freelance opportunities coming our way. And so we were in Delhi for a shoot and we were flying back to Bombay. And that's when we started just talking about our plans and stuff like that. We didn't know each other that well back then. And I told her that I want to start something of my own. And she was like, you know what, I'm down, which was very spontaneous of her because I never even knew whether I would have liked to have a co-founder or not. But it's just that our synergies aligned so well that I was like, let's just try it out. And that's how it started. And yeah, it started on a flight. So we took those, it was like 1 hour, 45 minutes. Within that time, we locked on the fact that we wanted to start out together. We made a client wish list of like the top brands. And luckily we have happened to cross a few of them off, but we still have a long way to go. And yeah, that's when it started. And to address your question about the name, we actually were debating about the name for approximately 5 months. So for 5 months, we could not settle on anything. We wanted to go with something that sort of encapsulates our approach towards production and also just the entertainment and film world in general. And that's when we came up with Run Frenzy, because Run is all about like dynamism, movement, and like, just moving
Correct. And
forward
speed.
things. Speed, exactly. And also, we were
Correct.
so young that we sort of wanted to match that energy, because even when we started, we didn't overthink it. We were like, just start, like, just like there was like a sort of rush to what we were doing. And also, frenzy, just because of the chaos of the space that we're in. But we also love that chaos, and it also leads to a lot of creative outbreaks. So that's how the name came about.
But you know that client part which you mentioned, I found that very interesting. So like when I started podcasting when I was 16, I had in my notes section I had written down a couple of names that I wanted to bring on my podcast, and a lot of them I did manage to get them over time. Some of them are still remaining, but like you said, it also gives you like a goal to chase where you know what you want next. So that
Right.
is very helpful, I feel. So yeah.
100%. And it's super satisfying to tick that off your list.
But
Yeah.
were you always entrepreneurial, or did something like spark something like to launch your own company, or was there like some fire which was ignited within you, or what was that thing like?
I think I was always clear that I wanted to start something of my own. I was never someone who had much of like, even in my family is very entrepreneurial. My dad's side, my mom's side, my parents as individuals have been super proactive about teaching us to be independent. So I think that's something, like being in a job for the long term was never a thought that I had. Like, of course, I've done my fair share of jobs and internships and stuff like that, but I always knew that it was to learn. And eventually, I wanted to start my own thing. So I think that was always there. And yeah, and I happened to find a great co founder along the way. So it just sort of made things easier. And just that push, or like that confidence that you need to start, also came because we had each other to sort of rub off, or when one felt like scared, the other was there to like uplift the other. So yeah.
But like I was very when you started, y'all were like pretty young. So how did you like? Did you have a hard time and like other people taking y'all seriously or taking your work seriously? What was that like? How did you convince people to work with y'all when you're like just starting out, especially at such a young age?
Honestly, it was a challenge, but luckily we met a lot of people who took our age as an advantage rather than as a disadvantage. Because being this young allows you to be very close to the internet, because we are the ones who are the
Correct.
most internet savvy. So it gives you a lot of insight into the kind of content that's actually doing well. And what we were able to do is, even to the people who did doubt us because of our age, we overcompensated in terms of our planning and our execution. Because I'm a very big like planner and strategist. Like, I'm very particular about the things that I'm doing, especially when it comes to pre-production or like the pitching stages for a client, because I want to make sure that what we're communicating to them is crystal clear. And I think we overcompensated in terms of planning, and that's how people sort of trusted us more given our age.
So how did you like reach out to your first clients though? Like, okay, you said you had a list, you wanted to start working with them, but what was that process like? How did you start reaching out, and how did all these opportunities come up to you? You had one, then you went to the other, then it was like a continuous process. So how did that happen?
So honestly, a large chunk of it goes to networking, but also like we did a lot of cold calls and cold emails and stuff. Like in our first year, I think for the first like we hired like one intern, and all of us, like collectively, me, Meghna, and that one intern would send out approximately 30 emails a day, and we would not be afraid to pick up the phone and like call people. And we didn't really wait for clients to come to us. We sort of chased, and not just chased like without a goal, because we had that client wish list in place. We had very particular targets that we wanted to achieve, which is what led to us um, getting a certain caliber of clients on board in our first year. So I think, yeah, a lot of it was networking, like within the industry, because we had individually worked in different fields, but within the entertainment space, Meghna's done more marketing, I've done more film and production. So that helped us a lot. And I think relationship building, because from a young age, I knew that I wanted to start out, I made it a point to keep good relations with everyone I've met along the way. And I think they all have helped shape so much of who I am and what I've learned in this space. But that is what helped us propel us to, a certain sort of clientele.
So how do you like maintain those relationships in the long run? Like what happens in that state? What happens in that process actually?
I think I think what is really important is connecting with them over something. Like, it's not that you need to agree with them about things. There might be a certain level of disagreement as well, but I feel like establishing a connection that goes slightly deeper than work is really important. And I feel like also recognizing what they bring to the table, because what happens, especially in an industry like ours, is that there's so many hands on set, or there's so many people doing the same thing, that a lot of the times people are neglected, or they're not often looked at as being in, like, given enough importance as the others. So what is really important is connecting with them over something that's slightly deeper than work. I feel like that really helps. And I also think maintaining relationships is really important. Like, you can meet someone once, but then, following up on that meeting, or actually taking the time out to remember something of theirs, maybe it's their birthday, maybe it's something that they care about. I think that's something that goes a long way.
Okay, that is interesting. I will have to keep this in mind going ahead. I mean, I really like doing that, so yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to come to the creative and work processes. So, like, y'all have worked with such big names, but let's say, how does it initial from start to finish? How does the creative process look like? Let's say, if you can give an example of when you were working with Navya. So, what was that like, or any other projects? How does it happen?
Mm-hmm. I think I'd actually talk to you about Coffee with Karan, because that was a very interesting project, and our scope of
Okay,
work was quite varied on that. So I think that'll be interesting. So it started off, we actually, because it's such a big name when it comes to pop culture, we had multiple
correct.
rounds of pitches. We had approximately 7 rounds of pitches. And by pitches, I mean we essentially talk to the client about what they're looking at. So the client here being Geo Hotstar and Dharmatic. We talk to the client about what their vision for this season is, what they're looking to achieve out of this. Of course, it's a legacy brand. So, and each year they have a particular target or a particular theme they want to follow. So we sort of understand that. And then we put together a set of ideas that might travel well across digital platforms. So whether that's launch ideas, sustaining ideas, post launch ideas, um, we sort of come up with essentially a plan and also creative concepts that can be achieved within a given timeline, within a given budget for them. And we take that to the clients, we discuss with them what they feel about it, and then we tailor the pitch according to their feedback. So that is what I mean by pitching rounds. And we had approximately 7 of those. So we had a lot of back and forth. There were a lot of other agencies, I'm sure, that pitched for this as well. However, we were able to crack that. And then in terms of execution, if it's a one-time shoot, which we've done a lot for a lot of fashion houses, hospitality, entertainment brands, then you get a team on board for that particular day or 2 days. But with a Coffee with Karan, the shoot spanned across 2 or 3 months. So we get a team on board for that particular project. The team is in-house with us, but they're dedicated to that project. So we have a project manager, and then we have, of course, your DOPs, your editors, your graphic designers. And that's how we create sort of a team pertaining to a particular project, especially if it's long term. And then when it comes to shoot, we have on floor for Coffee with Karan, we had a DOP, we had a photographer, and we had 2 producers. And what
Correct.
happened during the course of a project like Coffee with Karan is that our scope of work kept increasing. So we started off with doing their Instagram content as well as their YouTube trailers and teasers. And then during the course of us working on it, because they happen to like our work, we got involved in the IP development side of things. We started off doing sponsor content for them. We also ended up creating all the graphics for their now streaming posters that went up on all platforms. So when something like that happens, you have to immediately increase your team's strength, because you
Correct.
don't want to compromise on quality at all. And it's also something that has very tight turnaround times. The episodes going out weekly, so we need to make sure that things are very systemized and in place. And even if there's a last minute requirement, someone on standby is there to pertain to everything. And then we move on to post production, where we actually finish the edits end to end, and we give the clients the final assets to be posted. And in a lot of cases, we do go above and beyond. We come up with strategy, we do social media, etc. That's not something we primarily do. However, because we're still at a pretty nascent stage, we are trying to cover everything under the content universe. So if a brand requires, we do provide those services as well.
That's very interesting. So, what is? I mean, this is just very. I'm very curious about this. What is like the whole
Yeah.
timeline? Let's say there's like the video is shot. The shoot has taken place on, let's say, Monday. So on the
Mm.
first of, let's say, on the 1st of March or something. So in how long? What is the timeline from that to y'all getting the work produced and done? Like, how long does it take for your team?
Honestly, it entirely depends on the client. Like, say for example, one animation and motion graphic project we did was for Call Me Bay, and something like that, like we designed the entire opening title sequence. Something like that would generally take 2 months, but we executed it within 5 days because that was the requirement. So, but when it comes to shoot, like a particular shoot, our ideal timeline, of course, our timelines are entirely dependent on the client, but an ideal timeline would be 10 days for pre-production, then a 1 or 2 day shoot depending on what the requirement is, and then 10 days for post production. So say approximately 25 days, keeping in mind buffer time. And that of course has multiple deliverables, like the shoot would have images, videos, carousels, gifs, graphics, etc., etc. So all of that within a 25-day time period. Of course that varies if it's a long term project or if there are tight turnaround times.
Interesting. So, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you this. How do you and your team stay ahead of the curve with, like, these different trends and innovation that is happening in the market? Because due to the internet, there's something new that is constantly coming up. Even, like you said, you all help out in creating the short clips for companies and all. So, there are certain trends that happen in social media. So, how do you all stay ahead with that?
So I think, and we keep repeating this in office, is that the goal is not to understand the trends that are taking place now, but to forecast what will be a trend in, say, a month or 2 months, because things are changing so rapidly. And like I said, our production timeline is generally, if we're shooting something 25 days, so by that time something can already get old, because as you
Correct.
know, like the internet is so fast today. So our goal is to always stay ahead of the curve, and we do that essentially by not limiting ourselves to just using ads as references. Our reference standpoint, they span across fashion, across film, across technology. We even refer to certain articles when it comes to visual direction. So like we'll read an article and that'll give us an idea for how we can possibly visually represent something, and we use that as reference point to try to convince a client that this is something that's not done before, this is something that will be relevant even 6 months down the line. So that's what, staying ahead of the curve and also referencing beyond your general ads that you would look at. So looking at absolutely everything under the creative sun, even art, say for example, is a great source of reference.
Correct. So do you all
Yeah.
have like these for your teams? Do you have like these routines or something like where you all sit and have inspiration sessions or brainstorming sessions and all? Do you all have something like that, or how does it work?
Yeah, so what we try to do is, with every client brief, of course, we have particular people taking care of it. However, we do a session where we have everyone from the team discussing things, because what happens at the time of creative ideation is, because you sit on it so much, you lose objectivity. So it's always good to have a fresh perspective. So we do that. And what we also do as a team exercise is every 2 to 3 months, we try to produce like a short format content piece of our own. Because when it comes to clients, of course, because they have certain commercial goals, there are
Correct.
restrictions in terms of what you can and cannot make. So we do try to every 2 to 3 months actually produce content for ourselves, where we let like our imagination absolutely run wild. And those brainstorms last pretty long because someone wants to do something and someone wants to execute something a certain way, someone doesn't. But we end up creating something that's truly organic to us. And whether that drives reach or drives traction, that really doesn't matter because it's just a creative exercise that we enjoy doing. So yeah, we do that. We also host a lot of nights where we sort of just sit on Run Frenzy's vision together because it's still pretty nascent and Meghna and I are really young. Our team is really young. So we like to collaborate with one another and we want them to feel that sense of ownership wherein they can also contribute to what is driving the company and where it's going.
That's pretty interesting. I mean, it does help, I feel. So, like earlier, when I was younger, I used to intern at this company, and it was all a bunch of 20-year-old kids. So, it was very fun working with them.
Yeah.
And it was during COVID. So, what used to happen is we used to have one day dedicated across every week. It was every week because everyone was working from home at that time. So, it was everything was remote. We used to just sit and we
Yeah.
used to brainstorm on what we can improvise on the ideas, and then we used to have this Notion document where everyone needs to put up an idea once a week on what they feel is an addition to the product. So that kind of
Right.
gave the product improved a lot over time, because when everyone gave even one suggestion once a week, it helped a
Yeah.
lot. And then we used to have these game nights and all that stuff. So that helped a lot. So yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like you said, having those sessions does work out.
Yeah, for sure.
But I want to know, you balance so much. So you're one side you're like a creative visionary, and the other side you're like this business leader. So how do you balance both the roles?
I honestly think that I recently spoke to a journalist about this as well, but I feel like what differentiates us and what allows us to balance both creativity as well as the commercial side of things is that we prioritize execution. So, what happens a lot of the times when you're thinking creatively is that you really let your thoughts run wild. And you reach a point where you're kind of like, okay, I love this idea, but like, how would we execute it in the given timeline or budget? So, what we tend to do is we are very execution first when we're creatively thinking. So, what that helps is that your creative ideation is molded in a way that is doable and that supports your financial and your just your larger goals in terms of where you're driving the company or even what the brand has come to you with. Because if you're not matching their expectations or their aims with the piece of content that they've come to you to produce, then there's really no point of it. So I feel like it's a fine line, but what we try to do is we try to think execution first, even when we're thinking creatively. And honestly, that does allow us to come up with great ideas because what happens a lot of the times is when you tell the team or when we're all sitting together and we're like, okay, no, we have X amount to achieve something amazing. How are we doing this? So while the brainstorming process lasts longer, it gives birth to ideas that are fresh and that are actually executable rather than us going to the client and being like, listen, we have this amazing idea,
Correct.
but it requires triple your budget. So, and that is also something that helps clients trust us and have that sense of confidence in us.
Interesting. So this is very random again. Are you like the friendly type of boss, or are you like the very serious type of boss when you're at work? Or do you like have a balance of both? Like, how is it?
I think so Meghna and I are both, like I said, really young, and our team is literally the same age as us. So we are friendly because obviously it would just come naturally. We're meeting the team day in and day out, and we're almost like all of us are like a bunch of friends. But I would say out of Meghna and I am the stricter boss because we did this like wine night recently, and we asked them actually what they thought, and they definitely said that I almost have like a resting bitch face of sorts. But yeah, I'd say that I am friendly when I need to be, but I feel like also like the fact that we all are the same age, we need to set certain boundaries. And I feel like that can come across as slightly strict sometimes.
So, like, if you're not playing good cop, bad cop, you would be the one
I
playing
mean, I
bad
wouldn't reveal that, but yeah.
cop. But
Yeah.
I want to come across. So, as an entrepreneur, I'm pretty sure you must have faced multiple challenges. So, what has been one of the toughest challenges in your journey till now? And how did you overcome that?
Honestly, I think one of the toughest challenges for us was building a team that believes in what we're doing and also figuring out the kind of leaders we want to be. Like Meghna and I, till date, we're still practicing the kind of leaders we'd want to be, because like there are, we both have our individual strengths and weaknesses, but also our age plays a big role, you know, because we haven't had a lot of prior experience. So I think trying to figure out the kind of leadership styles we'd want to implement and where to draw that fine line between being taken seriously and not, I think that's been a challenge. But I think we're getting the hang of it. But in our first year and even till like our second year, it was quite a challenge. But I think now we have formed a solid team who understands us, understands the vision, understands what we're trying to build. But yeah, that was definitely one of the bigger challenges.
And on the flip side, what would you say are your biggest wins or milestones that you all have covered till now? Or maybe like the biggest ones, if you.
Okay. So I think in terms of projects, for me, the projects which are already out there, I don't want to speak about the projects that we're currently doing, but there's a lot of exciting stuff coming. But I think out of the projects we have done, I think getting coffee with Karan in our first year was a big win, because it was definitely a stamp of legitimacy. And I think another one of the biggest wins for us was when we were on set. This one showrunner, she was this really known personality in the industry. She came to Meghna and I, and she was like, "The set feels like home when you guys enter." And I think that was really nice, because while we do try to, you know, position ourselves as fast and dynamic and chaotic, what we really value is the relationships that we build with the people that we're working with. So I think that was really nice.
Well, I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to talk about. So, what is something like, what would be your core philosophy in life and business? Like, how do you look at it? Like, is there some quote or some philosophy that you live by that has helped you achieve so much? Or how do you define your mindset?
I honestly think that my dad has a big role to play when it comes to my mindset, because he's raised my brother and I to be very, very, like, he always says, never take stress, always give stress. So he's always been the kind of person who has inculcated a lot of confidence in us. So I feel like definitely a big thing that comes out of that is that what I do prioritize and like would say that my mindset, like key factors would be, is clarity and pace. Like I feel like what happens a lot of the times when we're not sure is that we lose out on clarity and pace. And I think those are two things which are extremely important. So being clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and also not taking too much time to start. Because what I've seen in our generation is people sit on things for way too long and they ask for too many people's opinions. So I feel like pace is very important. And like, don't give yourself enough time for the fear to settle in. Just start.
I love that philosophy. I think I need to
Yeah.
implement that.
Yeah,
But
just clarity and pace.
I want to ask you this. So, you've met so many people, you've learned from so many people. So, from who do you draw inspiration in your life? Like, okay, we can divide it in two ways. One is in your professional life and your personal life. Who are the people that you look up to draw inspiration from?
Honestly think in my personal life, it would hmm, I mean, okay, I can answer for my professional life first. I think that would
Yeah.
definitely be this one marketeer. Her name is Bosma St. John, and she's worked for some of the
Okay.
biggest companies. And I think just the way that she approaches her work and also approaches her life has been pretty amazing. I used to listen to her podcast a lot. I haven't had the time to recently, but it was super inspiring. And she's super eccentric when it comes to her styling. She's very unconventional. So I think she was a big source of inspiration for me. And when it comes to my personal life, to a large extent, I would actually say Karan Johar. I know I've spoken about Coffee with Karan and Karan Sir so much, but I honestly think he's very, very inspiring, because he is a man who's able to balance so much while being so true to who he is as a person. Like who he is on screen is exactly who he is off screen. And I think honestly in this space that is so inspiring in itself. But other than that, he's made some of the biggest films of our generation. I mean, the generations before as well. And he's still able to balance a social life, balance his family life, you know, talk shows, ads, and being a director and handling one of the biggest production houses. So I think that's pretty amazing, because what I would prioritize in my personal life is a sense of work life balance while also staying true and committed to what you're doing. So I think he does that really well.
Interesting. So, I wanted to also talk about in the industry, you probably over time, you must have faced a lot of rejections also. You must have faced no's. So, how do you deal with that? And how is it kind of, has it built an armor around you and made you stronger? Or do you like think a lot about it, or what happens?
Like, honestly, we don't think about it a lot. Like, I think that Mingda and I also have always followed this approach of not taking ourselves too seriously. And I think failure is a really important reason for you to pivot. Like, you need to not let it sink in too deep. Like I said, clarity and pace. You need to not like let it sink in too deep and use it as almost like market research for you to pivot and understand that, okay, like something went wrong there. Maybe we didn't have enough clarity, maybe the budgets went overboard, whatever it may be. But moving forward, we have to pivot. So again, like stemming from my core philosophy, clarity and pace, if you let it sink in too much and think about it too much, it's just going to hold you back. So you got to learn from it and move ahead with the time.
And I want to ask you also about your personal life. So, what do you do something outside of work that might actually surprise people? That people don't know about you. Something maybe your hobbies or your passions unrelated to your profession.
So honestly, I've always been such an indoor person, but this year I've been trying to get myself to go out into nature more, because I'm always in front of the screen, whether it's my laptop or my phone. And I'm like zooming into things and seeing them, and that's given me bad dark circles. But I've been trying to go on a lot more treks and just be in the outdoors more. So I think that's something I'm trying to do. I've actually signed up for this really cool club called Break Free, and they do a lot of these activities outdoors and things like that. So I've been trying to go for more of those events. And I think one of my goals this year is just to sort of be more outdoorsy and try out more like physical activities. So that's something I've been trying to do. And in school, I actually took art for 4 or 5 years. So I do a lot of art. These few years I haven't been able to because of work and stuff, but that's something I enjoy a lot.
You should plan a trip to Goa. You will love it over here. I mean, after the monsoon season, like there's a lot of outdoor activities to do over here.
March.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
but I
came in
didn't do
March.
any. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
otherwise you would have enjoyed that. But I
Yeah.
want
Yeah. Next.
So I want to ask you the final question. So, what would be your advice to anyone who is watching or listening to this podcast?
I think. Um, hmm, I honestly think back yourself up as much as possible. What I've seen a lot of people doing is like making themselves a little smaller than what they potentially could be. So back yourself as much as possible. Even if you have no idea how you're going to achieve something, just say yes and you'll figure it out along the way. And B, don't take yourself too seriously. Like, if you're going to do something, just do it. If it doesn't work out, it's okay. And I feel like a huge benefit of our age is that we have all the time to take risks and have it not work out. So honestly, just take that risk and then don't overthink it. Don't take it too seriously. Just let it happen.
I think that's amazing. So, it was really great having you on the podcast, Anya. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Ayush.
I'll just